So now that we've got the vehicle lifted up enough, supported, one thing I like to do before I start, and I always make sure that I do this whether I'm taking tires off or working under the vehicle, is I give the vehicle a little shake side to side to make sure it's fully supported before I start taking the wheels or laying under the vehicle. In today's video, I'm going to show you how easy of a process it is to swap on your winter tires. So the process for swapping over your winter tires is extremely simple. You're only going to need a handful of tools and a little bit of time to do it. To start, before I do anything, I determine am I going to start on the rear of the vehicle or the front. Today we're going to be starting on the rear of the vehicle. So what I do is I block the front wheels so the vehicle, when it's lifted up in the rear, it can't roll forward or backwards. I have a set of rubber wheel chocks. So what I do is I stick one on the back of the tire, and on the opposite side I stick one on the front of the tire. That's going to stop the vehicle from being able to roll forward or backwards. So on this tire, we're going to stick it behind the tire, and on the opposite side we're going to stick it on the front of the tire. So now that we've got both the front wheels chalked in opposite directions, what I'm going to do is make sure my lug nuts are not on extremely tight so I can get them off. If you're doing this by hand, you'll definitely want to break these free a little bit before you lift the vehicle up. If you're using an impact and a larger compressor, you generally won't have any issues, but I'm using a small compressor today, so I'm going to break these free right now. So all I do is with a breaker bar, I just throw it on. And I make sure that they're loose enough that my impact will be able to take them off with a smaller compressor. So now that I've broken free the lug nuts on both sides of the rear, we're able to start lifting up the vehicle. This part is going to change depending on the vehicle. Sometimes you're able to lift on pinch welds, sometimes you're able to lift on the frame. For this one, I'm just going to lift up on the rear housing of my differential, and I'm going to throw in some jack stands on each side so I can take the wheels off. When it comes to lifting up your vehicle off the differential, a lot of people don't like to do it because there is a possibility you could damage the bottom of the cover. I generally don't lift off my differential housing, but when I do my snow tires, because my snow tires are over an inch taller than my summers, I want to make sure I'm swapping both of them at the same time and lowering the vehicle back down at the same height on both sides. So now that I've got the vehicle lifted up enough, I've got both of my jack stands placed on the axle housing, and I've released the majority of the tension on the differential housing. So now that we've got the vehicle lifted up enough, supported, one thing I like to do before I start, and I always make sure that I do this whether I'm taking tires off or working under the vehicle, is I give the vehicle a little shake side to side to make sure it's fully supported before I start taking the wheels or laying under the vehicle. Now that we're ready to go, we're going to pop off these lug nuts. Now that we've got the wheel released, what we're going to do is pull it off. Sometimes if it's stuck in the hub, you can tap side to side and that'll help break it free. While I've got this apart, I always like to double check to see how my brakes are looking. I've got a decent amount of pad on there, but I know by the end of winter I'm probably going to want to swap in some new rear brakes. Now they're ready to put the tire on. We're going to line it up here. I always start by putting my valve stem towards the bottom. I've got the tire fully on there. I'll throw down one lug nut hand tight all the way. That'll stop the tire from teetering before I get the rest of these nuts on. Now that they're all in there by hand, I'm just going to run them down with the gun. Now that we've got this side swapped, we're going to go to the driver's rear and we're going to repeat the same process. Because I already broke these nuts free again by hand, I know with my smaller compressor that they will come off without an issue. Again, I'm going to take a look at my brakes. And I have a very similar amount of brake left on this side as the other side. So again, I have my valve stem towards the bottom. And again, I'm going to start with the bottom one. Put it on all the way. So now that we got the other side on, we're going to jack up the vehicle a little bit, pull the two stands, and we'll lower the jack. Now that the two stands are out of the way, when lowering the jack, I go slow, and you want to make sure you have nothing underneath the vehicle when you're lowering it down. Now that we have the two rear winter tires on, we're going to move to the front. And now that we're ready to start on the front of the vehicle, we're going to do the same process. We've got both of our wheel chocks. We're going to go to the rear and do the same thing. One in the front, and on the opposite, one on the rear. So on this one, we'll go on the front. And on this one, we're going to go on the rear. So again, like on the rear, we're going to follow the same steps of precaution. We're going to lift the vehicle in the middle of the front cross member and then place jack stands on each side. And we'll do both tires at the exact same time again. Now that we're ready to start again, we're going to do the same process as in the rear. So you can see the lug nut got stuck on this one. If you just thread it back on and wiggle, you should be able to remove it. This tire has come off easy as well, but again, if it's tight, you can smack back and forth here and it should help you break the seal. So again, we have our stem towards the bottom. We're going to line up these studs here. We've got the wheel on. We're going to tighten down one lug nut so the wheel doesn't teeter. So the reason we're threading these on by hand to start and not using the gun is if you try to just run this down with the gun, what'll end up happening is there's a possibility you'll cross thread. And if you do, you'll end up damaging the stud here. Watch that at the very end. So now that this tire is on, we're going to go to the other side and complete the same process again. So again, we're going to complete the same process. So again, we've lined up our valve stem at the bottom, and we're going to line up the wheel. We've got the wheel on. We're going to tighten down that first nut again by hand. Add the other four. So we're now going to tighten down all the lug nuts. So now that we've got the other side on here too, we're going to go back to the front, raise the vehicle, pull the jack stands out, and then we're going to lower the jack down. So we've got all the jack stands out of the way, everything is clear, and we can lower the vehicle. So now that the vehicle has all four wheels changed, we're going to start by pulling out our wheel chocks again. We're going to then grab our torque wrench, and we're going to torque down all the lug nuts on each tire. Now that the tires are changed, we're ready to torque down our wheels here. So for this vehicle, I'm doing it at 130 pounds, but check your owner's manual or service manual. That will let you know what your torque spec needs to be. We're now going to do the other side of the rear. So your final step, now that you've got your winter tires on, is to program your TPMS sensors if you've got sensors in your winter tires. For this vehicle, I'm going to be posting another video showing you how to do that, so stay tuned for that one. If you don't have TPMs, then the only other step for you is just to check the tire pressure manually, and if any of your tires need air, you'll fill that up. Depending on the vehicle, you'll want to check the inside marker on the driver's side door to let you know what the desired air pressure would be for your vehicle. If you found this video useful or enjoyed this content, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.